Hey, everybody. Welcome to another great episode of the Boston Chris Podcast. It is Bucky Heard week here on the show. Let me tell you a little bit about Bucky Heard, but before we do, make sure you guys hit that like button wherever you're watching or listening today. If you want to see and hear more in-depth candid interviews with some amazing people from all walks of entertainment, you can, of course, subscribe or follow for free wherever you are. And, of course, make sure you comment down below what your favorite part of this episode was. But let me tell you a little bit about Bucky Heard from his website. He says, I want to uplift people and make them happy they came to see me. That sentence cuts to the heart of the man who has earned the reputation as a singer, who has the soulful grittiness of Bob Seger and the soaring vocal range of Steve Perry. It also speaks volumes about Heard, whose inspirational, uplifting, and energetic live performances are filled with joy and exuberance. Heard's music and his artistry are on full display in his upcoming album produced by legendary Nashville producer Bob Bullock, whose production and engineering credits include Shania Twain, Reba, George Strait, Keith Urban, and REO Speedwagon, among many other artists. The project boasts country and rock influences that are skillfully woven into life by some of Nashville's greatest session players, and brims with songs crafted by Heard and a host of Nashville's top songwriters, including Kent Blasey and Marv Green, among others. It covers the full spectrum of moods and emotions that are at the heart of this bigger-than-life personality, from hard-driving rock and country songs that showcase his powerhouse vocal style, to mid-tempos that carry life-affirming messages, to delicate ballads that demonstrate the depth of his soulful vocal range. The album is a spot-on snapshot of a man whose talent is only matched by his determination. Bucky Heard, an Alabama native and Auburn University alumnus, Heard has garnered critical praise in such publications as The Washington Post and the USA Today. He has shared the concert stage with a constellation of superstars from multiple genres, including Glenn Campbell, Michael McDonald, B.B. King, the Beach Boys, The Temptations, Jonathan Cain, and many more. And after many years of experience performing in clubs, theaters, and venues across America, Bucky Heard's life was forever changed in 2016 when he was handpicked by the legendary Rock and Roll Hall of Fame icon Bill Medley to become his partner in the Righteous Brothers. Heard's youthful energy has rekindled a new spark into the world-class Righteous Brothers, who are now on their farewell tour. Medley himself has been a strong supporter of Heard's solo step into the spotlight. I'm very excited about this next chapter of my music career, says Bucky Heard. I look forward to hitting the road and taking these songs to the fans this year. And we are excited to be hitting the road with Bucky Heard right here on the Boston Chris Podcast. Without further ado, let's get our $1 million sound effects in gear and get right into it with Bucky Heard. Woo!
Hey everybody, this is Brandon Ryder, and you're tuning in to the Boston Chris Show.
Hey guys, we have Bucky Heard here on the show. He's got a brand new single out and a brand new album on the way, and we have a mutual friend, Cliff Doyle, and Cliff he's your manager now, right? He's behind the solo run.
Yes, man, Cliff's incredible. He's also been functioning as my publicist. Cliff became my manager about 2 months ago, And boy, he's unbelievable. Just an incredible, and also, as you know, just a great guy.
Absolutely, one of the best, to be honest. We did an episode with him early on, and we called it the Jack of all trades. That man literally does everything. If you've got Cliff Doyle in your corner,
the whole team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he can do everything, and if he can't do it, he knows who to hire to do it. Right.
Without question, man.
Yeah,
I'm beyond blessed to have him on my team.
Yeah, man, it's cool to have you here, man. I always ask an icebreaker question to start off. I'm interested because you are in Vegas to this answer. What are your favorite drinks right now, alcoholic or not?
Say that one more time. On my favorite.
Your favorite drinks.
Oh, my favorite drinks.
Yeah.
Oh well. I don't drink a lot of soda. I won't say it's my favorite, but I pump down the water just because being in Vegas, if you don't, you die.
Yep.
And man, I like me a nice dirty martini.
Nice. That's a good answer. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I feel like every time
get right to it.
Every time I ask that question, I feel like I get the musician answer, right? Like when I'm on stage, it's an old fashioned or a martini or a beer or whatever. But when I'm off stage, it's always water. I have to stay hydrated.
Yeah, man. I don't. Very rarely. Back in my rock and roll, when I was in my rock bands, in the few years back, I would I'd enjoy having like a little tequila and sometimes a little Jägermeister because I always said because of the licorice and the Jägermeister, it helps my throat. That was my excuse. Mm-hmm. But I've gotten where now I don't have any beverages until I hit get off the stage. Then I really look forward to it.
Yeah, you got to grease the skids, man. You are very well known for your voice, and I definitely want to chat about your vocals later. I feel like vocals as an instrument really gets overlooked a lot of times. So a major part of this podcast is definitely going to be kind of talking about your vocals later. But
cool.
Let's get started a little bit early on. You were born in Dadeville, Alabama. Is that correct?
Yeah, as they used to, I'm dating myself now, but as they used to say on Hee Haw, salute. It's Dadeville, Alabama. Population 1,800. Salute.
Wow.
But yeah, tiny little town, South Alabama. I always tell my friends, in retrospect, I wouldn't have wanted to grow up anywhere else. It was like growing up in Mayberry. You know, everybody knew everybody. My dad was a doctor. He's a country doctor. He had a little practice there in town, and it was just a real soulful, cool place to grow up, and family values and all that kind of stuff were kind of ingrained to you. It was very cool. But yeah, I'm a Bama boy, and I don't know if you're a football fan,
of course,
but in SEC you got Alabama and you got Auburn.
Yep,
and you have to pick sides. And families get torn apart by it. It's unbelievable. I'm an Auburn guy. My brother and sister and I, all three, graduated from Auburn. And we've got family members that graduated from Alabama, and we don't speak during football season.
It's ugly, man. Yeah, you call that side of the family, right? Those people. That's right. In Texas, it's Texas and A&M, right? It's thing.
A&M's now moved into the SEC,
right?
So I wondered if it was still as bad since they're not.
Well, I mean, they always hate Oklahoma here, so that's I feel like Oklahoma's kind of the backup, right?
One of my daughter's godparent, Charles Clark. He's from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. And boy, he hates Texas with a passion.
I know.
And A&M, both. God, but Texas, he really hates Texas.
Well, it's so funny because like being a music guy here and knowing pretty much everybody here in the Texas scene and the Oklahoma scene, like musically speaking, everybody gets along. But as soon as you start talking sports, man, I'll tell you what, they will tie your ass to the railroad tracks in a heartbeat.
Well, it gets ugly, and college is worse. I mean, so my wife's a big Kansas City Chiefs fan.
Yeah.
And she has been, my wife's Canadian. We got married back in 95, and we moved to a little town called Branson, Missouri that used to be a pretty big hubbub of music back in those days. And I said, well, you got to pick a team. You can't pull for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers here, And and she picked the Chiefs, and she was so regretful for all those years. Chiefs were terrible, and the Rams. She goes, I could have picked the Rams. We were winning Super Bowls, and now they're doing well.
Yeah,
she's
she picked the right team. She just had to be patient. That's all.
What's that?
I said she picked the right team. She just had to be patient. That's all.
She did, but she hates the Raiders, and here we are. I mean, she hates the Raiders.
Yeah.
And here we are living in Las Vegas. The Raiders moved here.
That's funny.
I'm actually singing the national anthem this Saturday at the Raiders 49ers game.
Nice.
And she's out of town. She goes, well, even if I was in town, don't expect me to go with you.
I'm not going to that. Yeah, nope. I ain't wearing that. So do you have to wear the Raiders jersey and all that, too, when you're doing that?
Well, they got me a Raiders jersey. They said, we want to get you a Raiders jersey made, just – yeah. And she said, what do you want? And I said, well, of course, I'm an Auburn guy, Bo Jackson, number 34. Yeah, of
course,
man. Yeah. And so, but when I sing the anthem, I just got to be dressed in silver and black, any kind of combination of silver and black. But my two buddies that I've invited to go with me, one of them is from a huge San Francisco 49ers fan. He's flying in to go to the game because we're going to be down on the sideline. It's going to be real cool. But I said, okay, man, you can wear San Francisco 49er underwear if you want. But no jerseys, dude. He goes, oh, I can't wear my jersey. I said, no, they do not play about that. No.
Yeah. Just have him wear like a Romanowski jersey, right? He played for both.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he played for both.
Yes.
I was a big 49er fan when I was a kid, so I know Romanowski and all those guys.
Oh, yeah, dude. Well, I've got to be friends. You know Craig Morton?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've got to be. I've met a lot of cool people because of being in the Righteous Brothers, and I meet a lot of stars and people, but I get starstruck when I meet these football guys, and Craig Morton was at one of our shows with, and this gentleman just passed away a couple of years ago. Great guy, Jim Fossil, who was the Super Bowl coach of the New York Giants. And they were both at the same game, dude, and I was just geeking out.
Wow. That's awesome.
And I've got to be buddies with John Gruden. Gruden and I got to be friends. He comes to our shows. It's just funny, these – and Gruden is like a Righteous Brothers fan. He comes backstage. He came back with the guy that owns, I think it was Hooters. He owns all those, and he came backstage and he was like geeking out over Bill, and I was geeking out over him. I'm like, that's freaking John Gruden.
Isn't it funny how that works, man? It's so cool, man. Let's rewind back to Dadeville, though. How did music find you as a youngster?
Well, having said, I grew up in a small town, and my granddad was a pastor. My uncle's a pastor. I've come from a lot of pastors and people involved in the church. My family was very involved, and I went to First Baptist Church in Dadeville, Alabama, and I still go back there and sing about once or twice a year. My little church, man, it's like 120 people that go there. But I started singing in choir when I was a kid and singing in church. And I remember I just fell in love with music at a very young age. It's almost like I knew I was destined to be somehow involved in music because I just loved it so much. And there's a difference in loving it, just as a hobby and loving it like deep in your heart where it's like breathing. Mm-hmm. And, I think I knew back then that there was in some way, somehow I was going to have to find a way, even though I lived in this tiny little town in South Alabama, find a way to somehow get involved and be in the music industry. And my career is just, staying in it and staying diligent and working hard at it and not giving up. That's what I try to encourage everybody out there, or young people and even older people that are wanting to get in the business. The main thing is to pour your heart into it and don't take no for an answer and keep perfecting your craft and never give up. And, I'm living proof, somebody that from a tiny little town in South Alabama, that could end up becoming a Righteous Brother. And
as an interviewer and music fan, I can tell you that the best artists and songwriters come from small towns.
It seems like that, man. I mean, look at even over in England, the Beatles and the Stones and all those guys were from small little towns on the outskirts, and they were just trying to find a way to make it. And they kind of helped create. They basically created rock and roll in their own sound. Nowadays it's very hard to find a niche because everybody's done that. But those guys were from small little towns and they wanted out and they found their own way of creating their own sound. And thank God they did. I remember Bill told me, or my producer, Bob Bullock's talking about Keith Richards. And he said somebody interviewed Keith Richards right when the Stones were first coming out. And they were giving him a little brief, what do you think, what if your fans, you're really putting yourself out there in a different kind of sound And you know, are you worried that there's not going to be enough fans to follow you? And Keith Richards said, well, they'll learn.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I thought was, I mean, that's such a cool statement. They'll learn.
Yeah.
So in other words, I'm going to bring my music, and I have faith in what I'm doing, and I think what I'm doing is great, and I think they're going to buy it, even though they might not right off the bat. So it's a pretty cool thing.
So, I mean, you basically knew early on, like, this music thing was just a deeper feeling for you as a kid, and
Yeah.
you kind of knew, like, you know, this is something different. Because, like, I feel like when we're young people, right, we're more impressionable, and the things that we are exposed to are the things that we're going to love the most, whether that be sports or music or film or whatever it may be. It could be anything, really. It could be bartending for all we know, right? But you know, you're going to be exposed to all of these different things, but something's going to come along and really take hold and not let go. And that was music for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know, and I was before I started working with Bill, and I was still living in Branson, I was doing shows, but I was also, you know, I'm a voice teacher. I've been teaching voice for about 25 years, and my degree is in theater. Mm-hmm. My dad always said, you got that degree in theater so you can act like you've got a job. Mm-hmm. but I would work with my students, and the thing I would tell them the most, especially my older students who were 18, 19, you know, I would ask them, you think you want to do this for a living? I mean, do you want to be in the theater, or you want to be in the entertainment industry? And a lot of times they would say yes. I said, well, let me give you one piece of advice, and this is huge. I said, I want you to hear me, and I want you to think about this. If you can think of anything else you would rather do that. Mm-hmm. In other words, if you've got a backup plan in mind, I'm going to get my marketing degree, which nothing wrong with that. But do the backup plan and do the entertainment as fun and as a side thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But man, it's a different commitment when you do it for a profession. You know, there's a different. It takes it to a whole different level. And my students that want to be in it professionally, I'm a lot harder on them, because the world's going to be a lot harder on them. Yep. You're told no, you're rejected. I mean, you're going to get told no unless you get really lucky. Really lucky. You're going to get a lot more no's than yeses, and you got to have thick skin. And no cannot be an option. And if it's not your passion, and if it's not like breathing to you, I'm afraid it's just too easy to give up. Mm-hmm. You know,
I feel like if you love what you're doing, when you're not doing it, that's all you're going to be thinking about.
Absolutely.
Right.
And if you don't do it, you're going to regret it the rest of your life.
Right.
You know, you've got to give yourself a shot, and you've got to not give up. You know, I mean, I became a Righteous Brother, you know, and I was so blessed. I mean, I've never had to wait a table. I've never had to take on any other job. You know, I've been an MC. I don't know if you're familiar with Yakov Smirnoff. He was just on Jimmy Fallon not too long ago, a Russian comedian. He was on Night Court. And Yakov had a big show in Branson in the 90s, and I was a Russian dancer for him for 2 years.
Let's go.
I mean, I did all that stuff. I was an MC on a showboat. I mean, I've taken on all kinds of jobs, but they were always in entertainment, and it always fed my soul until I eventually worked my way into, you know, a regular singing gig with my bands, and also doing shows. And I got to sing with Andy Williams. I got to perform with Tony Orlando and a lot of the greats back in the 90s, and learned a lot from those guys, you know, the old school. And now with Bill, you know, it doesn't get any better than Bill Medley. I mean,
your story is just incredible, man. Just the step-by-step of how you started and how you got to where you are. And that's kind of my gist here on this show, is kind of telling that story for folks. Because you don't get to talk about that stuff, you know what I mean? So let's talk about going to school, because again, you mentioned you went to Auburn for what ended up being theater performance, and that's what you got your degree in. But that's not how it started, right? Now, when you're growing up in a small town in a blue collar family, you know, going to your folks and saying, I'm going to be a singer, is probably not going to work very well. So you started with geology, is that right?
You've done your research, my God, yeah. Well, I was scared because my dad was like I said, he was a doctor, and they knew I loved it. I mean, I sang everywhere. I mean, church. I had a little band. They knew I loved it, but I was just scared to go to my dad and tell him I wanted to study theater. So my next love was I mean, I always loved. I mean, I'm a spelunker. I go caving.
I mean, either way, you were going to be a rock star, right? I mean,
there you go. You beat me to it, man. I went from rock. When I dropped out, I was in the geology, and actually I went to Auburn as a geology major, and I needed a year and a half to get my geology degree. And I got to the calculus and trigonometry parts of geology, and some of the classes we had to take, like geotectonics, which is the study of plate movement and fault lines. You're having to apply calculus to that, and math was not my strong point. And I started to lose a little interest in my buddies had a band in Auburn, and I started sitting in with them, and they liked my voice, so they wanted to kick their lead singer out, but they wanted a commitment from me. So at that point, I went to my family and said, I think I want to drop out of school and join this rock band, which, went over like a fart in church.
Yeah,
but
not going to go over well at all.
My dad was, supportive of that. He was great. And I lost my mom, was 58 years old, and lost her very young, but she was one that introduced me to music. And she was almost, I think, secretly happy about it, because I think she knew that was my passion. But my dad, he was behind it, and I did that for about a year and a half. We had an agent. We toured the Southeast, doing a lot of old rock and roll and 80s hair band stuff, but also Rolling Stones and Beatles, and then we did the Bon Jovi and that kind of stuff too. And after about a year and a half, it's hard to keep a group of people, like-minded people, on the same page. That's why so many groups break up and fight. I mean, look at Creedence Clearwater Revival, and even the Righteous Brothers, they break up because you can't get a group to agree. And we broke up, and I came groveling back home and went to work at Shoe City. I mean, Shoe City, I don't even know if that's open anymore, but this is such a bad shoe store that they would put one shoe out, and the customer would try that shoe on, and I would have to go in the back and get the other shoe. So I told my dad at that point, I said, I want to get my theater degree. I've always wanted to do that. And I decided to go into theater instead of music, because I felt like I could already sing, and I wanted to learn another element of the entertainment industry. And I took a lot of dance classes then, and ballet and jazz, and became a well-rounded. I wanted to become a well-rounded performer, so I wasn't pigeonholed into doing just one thing.
So this was all strategic already for you, even then.
Yeah, I mean, it was starting to fall into place, and I went to my dad and I told him, I said, I want to go back to school, which made him happy, and then I said, but I want to transfer my geology credits over, and I want to get my theater degree. And he said, well, son, why didn't you just do that to start with? And I said, I didn't think you'd be proud of me. And he said, I just want you to be happy. And I was like, light bulb came on, and me and my dad grew tighter at that point.
That's awesome.
And I went back and I transferred my credits, and I got my theater degree in 2 years. So I was on the 6-year program, but I did get my degree. And so now it's funny, like you said, I went from rock to rock. I have a degree, I have a BFA in theater, and I have a double minor in geology, which is so odd.
That's awesome,
and a minor in music, because I took a lot of music courses while I was there as well.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. I love the fact that your dad was on board too.
Yeah, man. We just lost him a couple years ago, and he was on the, I told you we lost my mom, and my dad was on the second row for my first show here in Las Vegas as a Righteous Brother. Of course, he was a Righteous Brothers fan. That's his era. And so I was able to stand on the stage, and I introduced him, and it's emotional for me because I said, my producer is here, folks, literally my dad. And I said, I got one thing to say to you, Dad. I said, we did it. And he pumps his fist in the air, which was like, and so he came backstage after the show, and my dad has a Southern drawl, and he talked like this, you can almost you have to take a nap while he says one sentence. And I said, well, what did you think, Pop? Did you dig the show? He said, son, I'm real proud of you. He said, I'm glad you finally found a way to make all that hot air you grew up with work for you.
This is just great stuff, man. Let's talk a little bit about theater and the differences, because I've talked to a lot of folks that were brought up in music through the theater experience, and sometimes that theater life can lead to really bad habits when you're trying to make kind of the transition to mainstream music. Was that a difficult thing for you to deal with, like kind of getting rid of some of those performance aspects that they don't like in mainstream radio, so to speak? Yeah,
the main thing was, and I tell theater actually helped me become a better rock singer. Theater helped me become a better jazz singer and standard, because I sing all kinds, and now I'm doing, pretty much Southern fried country. They call it country music.
Yeah.
When I grew up, it was Southern rock. That's kind of what I'm doing, that Bob Seger sound. And I tell my students, I usually put my students on what I call classical training. So in our Righteous Brothers show, I actually do Nessun Dorma because I'm trained in opera. But I say when you do opera, musical theater, the old standards like Sinatra, even Disney, you learn techniques from that you can apply as a rock and roll singer to make you more durable. So many of my friends that sing in rock bands lose their voices and stuff, and I've learned how to sing properly and where to place it. And those are the things you learn. I tell, it's kind of like a dancer. My daughter's a dancer. She's in New York City studying theater as well. And she, when she went to the Nevada School of Ballet here, they don't miss ballet class. Dancers are not allowed to miss ballet, if they miss jazz or contemporary, all that. But why? And it's because the techniques that you learn from ballet apply to all forms of dance. And the techniques you learn from musical theater, the classics, you apply those to being a rock singer, and you become a stronger rock singer. Plus, singing in church also teaches you to sing for something that means something.
Yeah.
And when you're in theater and you're singing a song in a show, you are furthering the story. And it's your job to take the lyrics of that song and the melody line that the composer wrote and tell that story in such a way that it hits the heart of the listener and it pushes the story forward. And once you get into singing rock songs, if you can take that same concept, it really helps you to deliver the song as a monologue, if you will, because, the lyrics are written for a purpose. And it really helps you connect with your audience on a different level.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen singers come out there that just sing the songs one after the other.
Yep.
And they sound just like they do on the radio, but there's no connection. There's no, you're not you're not touching their hearts. And I quote Bill Medley a lot because I've been around him for 10 years now and I've learned so much from him. He said, you've got to push the buttons. You've got to push those heart buttons. You've got to reach out and you've got to touch them. So learning the techniques from theater that I learned and the interpretation of the song that I learned from theater, I feel has really taken me to the next level as a vocalist, not only technically with my range and my, vocal levels, but also interpreting the songs and being able to reach the audience on a one-on, like I'm singing to the audience as if I'm singing and talking to one person.
Right. Do you feel like it's equally as important with those techniques to know when not to use them, when to be more edgy, and especially in rock music, right?
Without question. And realistically, and this is a little thing that I'm going to give you a little bit of a glimpse into one of my vocal lessons, but what I tell my students, because a lot of my students will come in, they'll be rock singers or pop singers or, and they're not really jiving with the musical theater thing. And I'll take them through exercises and really tell them, I want you to enunciate. Like, I want to hear your consonants, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. And I say, and they'll get this look on their face like I'm trying to turn them into a musical theater singer. And I said, I'm not. I said, the technique that you use to sing is the same across the board. Whether you're singing rock, pop, opera, jazz, I don't care what it is. Where you place the note, how you breathe, and how you relax, that's all the same. The thing that makes the difference between, let's say, opera and country is the vowel pronunciation and what you do with the consonants. So like if I'm singing the word nothing as an opera singer, I'm going to say nothing. And you're going to hear the NG, you're going to hear the N, you're going to hear the O. If I'm singing it as a country singer, I'm going to take the G off the N and I'm going to pronounce the O as a U and say nothing.
Yep.
Nothing. So you go from nothing to nothing. But the technical side of it and how you sing is exactly the same.
Incredible stuff, man. And so, like, you learning this in school, right?
I'm sorry.
Are you learning this kind of stuff here that you're teaching students and stuff? Did you learn this mostly in school, or is this by experience as well, like just performing out?
A little of both. One of my mentors is named Ken Yates. He's 88 years old. He's still singing top tenor in barbershop quartet competitions.
Nice.
He's an amazing Irish natural first tenor. And I had him for 1 quarter. I only had 1 quarter worth of lessons in a junior college. And he taught me a good bit about breathing, about support. He used to put his fist in my stomach, right in my diaphragm, and have me lean completely into him where my toes were. If he moved his fist, I'm going to fall on him, and would have me sing like that, which would teach me to support.
Wow.
And then between that and, when I was growing up, you didn't have a lot of, it wasn't in this little town in Alabama, you didn't have vocal teachers you could call up.
Right.
I would play my Kiss albums and try to emulate Paul Stanley from Kiss. He's one of my favorite, he's one of my, my parents used to punish me by taking my Kiss albums away when I was in the 5th grade. And I loved the dramatics of it again, which goes back to the theater. Kiss had the makeup and they were blowing fire and the pyrotechnics and the light show. It wasn't just about the songs, it was about the stage performance.
It was entertainment. Entertainment.
Yes. Yep. And that drew me. And then Paul Stanley went on in 2007 to play Phantom of the Opera. Look it up. You can look up Paul Stanley as Phantom of the Opera. He's done it multiple times, which shows that, you can hear the training in his voice. So he went from singing, I feel uptight on a Saturday night to nighttime sharpens, and it was amazing. So, and then when I started teaching voice about 20 years ago, my top note was about an A, and within the course of a year, I went from an A, what I call belt note, your power voice, to like a D flat above high C, because I was seeing things in the students that they were doing wrong. And as I corrected them, I was unknowingly correcting myself.
Yes, yeah.
Getting rid of bad habits. I would see them, I tell them, don't go, when you go wide and you're singing like this, you create a lot of tension in your jaw and your throat, and you make it nasal sounding. And I would tell them, sing like you speak. You want to be conversational. You don't want to create tension in your voice. Anything you tighten here is going to affect this. It's going to pinch it off. So I was seeing things like that in my students and going and unknowingly applying it to myself. So I was doing a show. I'm sure you saw this in your research because you've obviously done your homework, but I was in a Blues Brothers tribute for 12 years for Legends in Concert. And, I'm singing, everybody needs somebody. I'm a soul man and all that stuff. But I was, I was only singing in a certain range, and I was told I was a baritone. Yeah. So I didn't think I was a tenor until I started teaching. And I'm backstage, and me and the guy that played Elwood, we were rooming with the guy that's doing Elvis. Yeah. And Dean Z, he was one of the top Elvis tribute artists in the country, sanctioned by the Elvis Presley estate. He's amazing if you're an Elvis fan. Yep. But he one day I'm just vocalizing backstage and I'm singing, and I remember thinking to myself, Journey is one of my favorite groups. I said, I'd give anything to be able to do one Journey song. And I'm sitting backstage singing, and I'm just warming up, and Dean grabs his guitar. He had his guitar on the wall, like in a little stand, pulls it off the guitar, and he said, Bucky, you just hit a C, a high C. And I'm like, really? And I didn't realize that my voice was doing that. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, I was all in on trying to see, where I can push this, and eventually ended up leaving Legends and joining a buddy of mine opened a small theater called the Tribute Theater and asked me to front this Journey show. Ironically enough, it's Journey. And now I'm doing 2 hours of Journey twice a week, 2 hours of CCR twice a week, and I'm doing the Don Henley track and his Eagle show once a week. And that Journey kind of, and I don't want to lead the witness because you're probably going to ask me about this, but Journey and doing that show is kind of inevitably what led me to becoming a Righteous Brother.
Yeah, it's funny, kind of the serendipitous nature of your career, right? Kind of the lead from one to another. Like, again, theater performance from Auburn. You became a cruise ship performer, which is not something that's just, gonna show up, right? Like, so tell us how that became a thing. Like, you ended up on cruise ships.
Well, I got my theater degree at Auburn in '89, and I ended up going to work at a small repertory theater, and and that contract was going to end in December. And it was about October, and I was sitting there going, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I decided to go to Barnes & Noble, and I bought a book with every, I figured, if I'm going to go to the next level, I need some training. I need to be in front of people. So I decided the cruise ships would be a nice option to, I was young and I was go see the world and sing on a big stage. So I started sending out my promo. I went in. Michael Bolton was huge then, and he had a song called "When I'm Back on My Feet Again." And I'm sitting in my chair in Birmingham, watching. I think it was Leno, and he came on and sang. And I'm having that woe is me moment. What am I going to do? I've got one more month that I don't have a job. And Michael Bolton, that song just really spoke to me. And this was way before you could really do it. Before there was a lot of the karaoke tracks and stuff like that. I mean, you could get them, but only certain things.
Yeah.
So I went and bought the sheet music, and I went into the Boutwell Studios in Birmingham, and I brought in a piano player, and I sang that song, and then I did a couple of musical theater songs, and I sent it to every cruise line and every agency that hired cruise lines in the country. I went and got a headshot down in Atlanta, had my resume updated, and I sent it out to everybody. And there was a company in Miami, Florida called Miller Reese Productions, a lady named Mary Ann Delaney, and she took a chance on me. She played her, and we're still friends. She said, I played the cassette in the office, and she heard me sing the Michael Bolton song and said, I want to hire him. And I had to be able to dance too. And the other people in the office said, well, Mary Ann, we haven't even seen him dance. She goes, I don't care. Have you listened to him sing? Yep. So she took a chance on me, and I became the lead singer for the largest cruise ship in the world at the time, which was the Sovereign of the Seas, and doing a musical theater review show and a jazz show. So we did 2 shows twice a week. It was me and a female vocalist, and we had 10 dancers, big production. It was incredible. And in the 4 years I did the cruise ship thing, I was able to sit there because we'd have star entertainers come on board. So I was able to see Vic Damone and Ben Vereen and Shirley Jones and Mel Torme and all these amazing singers come on. And not only was I performing, but I was watching these incredible artists on stage and how they handled the audience and how they talked to the audience. And I got to talk to them and ask them questions. And so I did that for 4 years, which is where my wife is in the business as well. She came on board one of the ships, and she's a dancer. And we had been doing the ships, and we were just done with it. And they wanted to make me a cruise director, and I didn't want to do that. So we kept hearing about Branson, Missouri. Branson, Missouri, and Yakov would come on, and Jim Stafford. Are you familiar with Jim Stafford?
I am, yeah. Wildwood Flower.
Like feathers and snakes, and that ain't what it takes. But Jim had a bunch of hits, and they would talk about Branson, and even John Davidson, that used to host the Hollywood Squares. He would come on with the show, and all these Branson acts. And I kept hearing about this town that was just booming in the Ozark Mountains. And so my wife and I, my buddy James Engel, who was Jim Stafford's music director, also played with Roy Clark and the Gatlin brothers. James invited us to come to Branson with the next break we took, which we did. And he set up an audition for me at Silver Dollar City as the theme park in Branson. And I went and auditioned just, because he knew I was trying to get off the ships, and I got a job offer to MC this show. And my wife got a job offer to be a dancer for this big magician in town. And we're like, wow, well, what do you want to just hang out here? And we thought we'd be in Branson for 6 or 7 months, and we were here for 22 years.
Yeah.
And I got to Andy
just
Williams.
On a whim, went to Branson. I want to rewind a bit to back to the cruise ships, though, because I feel like this was a massive, massive time in your life, not just because you met your wife during this time, but also, like, we've had a lot of different folks that have had the experience of being on a cruise ship and being a performer, entertainer on a cruise ship on the show. And it's so cool to watch the transformation between an artist before they were on a cruise ship and after, because I feel like that experience is so endearing to your growth, right? Oh. Because you did mention, you're asking questions of some of these other artists, but also you're performing 5-6 nights a week, so you can experiment with audiences. You can see what works and what doesn't, and all of that. So you're doing that during the 4 years, right? You're growing as an artist during this time, right?
Yeah, without question. And also, you're emceeing events like country western night. I was the host, and 1,200 people out, on the Sovereign. It was more than that, and I ended up being on the Sovereign, and then they wanted me in the entertainment. I became sports director, and I was also doing my own show. So I was sports director at day, doing shows, and my cabaret show at night, and hosting events. I flew to Europe twice. I brought 2 of the biggest ships in the world, the Monarch of the Seas and the Majesty of the Seas, brought them across the Atlantic, and on the maiden voyage of both of those. And not only singing and performing, but I'm real comfortable talking to an audience, like we talked about earlier. The key is to talk to an audience as a whole, like you're talking to one person.
And there's a lot of approachability in cruise ships, right? You have to be available for the audience.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
You have a name tag on. Everybody knows you every week. There's 2,500 people on the biggest ship when I worked, and now the ships are even bigger.
Yeah.
But back then, the capacity, there was about 2,500 passengers and probably another 1,200 crew.
Yeah, that's called instant extrovert, right?
Oh, yeah, it's not. And you had to learn to work the room.
Yep.
Which is so important. Like, being in theater and being in the entertainment business, I would say is 50% talent and 50% networking.
Yeah,
or maybe
absolutely.
more networking than talent. But it taught you how to work the room, how to make people feel comfortable, how to troubleshoot problems. You couldn't name something that probably hadn't happened to me on stage where you have to just be quick and off the, and so, yeah, man, it's like, I would say a cruise ship is a good place for artists to start their career, and a good way to kind of fade out the career. Maybe when you're kind of close to retiring and you want to still perform, you can go out and still do the cruise ship thing. Because the only bad thing about the cruise ship is that it really doesn't further your career as an artist, because you're on this little bubble that leaves port. Yeah. And you become like you're a rock star out there for those passengers for that cruise. And when you come back to land, I remember, I was like a rock star. I was doing the shows. Everybody knew me. I'd come in the room. People would, and then you go home for 6 weeks on vacation back to Auburn or Birmingham, where I was living. And I'd go into a bar and
nobody cares who you are. Yep.
Nobody cares. And so at that point I was like, and the ships can suck you in because you make good money. You see the world. You're out there. I was a single guy.
It's hard to get away from that, right? Because it's
it's very difficult, because it's like you're eating your favorite food every day, and it's like, so it was a big. I think it was one of the big most. I can't think of the word. It was that aha moment. Yeah. That my wife and I were both. They're trying to make me a cruise director now because they like that I can entertain, and I would have made good. Cruise directors make good money, but again,
I was going to say, man, the move to Branson was risky as hell for y'all. Like, it's
big time. Because here I was, and I went from singing in a tuxedo with a 12-piece band behind me, doing Sinatra and Tony Bennett, and even some rock and roll. I did Blood, Sweat, and Tears and all that big horn band, Chicago and stuff like that I was doing. And I go to Branson, and you're starting over. Yep. I've been on the ship for 4 years. I had a reputation. People knew who I was. I was making more money. To the point they were wanting to make me a cruise director on their next big ship. And I said no to that, to go to Branson. And the first job I got in Branson, they didn't know me as a vocalist. And they hired me as an MC in this little show. We did 5 shows a day at the theme park. It was called Shenanigans. And I had a pair of overalls on and a red handkerchief around my neck. And I was a power lifter. I was doing a lot of bodybuilding back then. I still work out and stuff, but not as much as like I was a big dude. And the comedian in the show, he would call me Howdy Doody on steroids. Although I never took a steroid in my life, honest to God. But he said, Bucky looks like Howdy Doody on steroids. So and I went to making minimum. Yeah. And the show ended up closing in October, and they didn't have a gig for me. And the only thing they had for me was to be a street character. So I put on this raccoon costume with a big head, and the bow tie, and me and a guy in a bear suit rode around on a 2-seater bicycle greeting the kids. And then when it got dark, I put on the Frosty costume with a big head. Yeah. And I did that. I remember thinking to myself, I've got a theater degree. And a month ago, I was in front of a 12-piece orchestra in a tuxedo. What the hell happened? But I had to start at the bottom, and I worked my way back up, you know. And when I left Branson, I was performing with Andy Williams. I had a big horn band called the Horn Dogs. We played together for 22 years, and we got featured in Washington Post, USA Today. I mean, we were a lot of musicians that just wanted to burn off steam at night. So
you started as Frosty and ended as a Righteous Brother, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, that's why I tell people I'm like a living testament, you know, and I don't try to force my beliefs on people, but honestly, I'm a living testament of what God can do if you just have faith and you just believe in yourself and you just don't take no for an answer, and you take everything that happens to you as an opportunity to learn and get better, even if it knocks you down. Get up, dust yourself off, and learn from it. You know, Hugh Jackman said one time, I love watching the Actor Studio with James Lipton, and he was interviewing Hugh Jackman, and Hugh Jackman said, I've gotten knocked down more times than I could ever think. He said, one of the people they have Q&A, and one of the students, film students, asked him, said, what's a piece of advice you can give a young person as myself that are just getting into this? He said, take a risk. He said, take risks, take chances. He goes, and be willing to die on stage. In other words, get your ass kicked and get knocked down. He said, because unless you're willing to do that, you'll never truly live and you'll never succeed. Mm-hmm. Well, and you'll never know how much you can actually take, and how it makes you really realize, Chris, how much you love it.
Yep. Well, one thing that's apparent to me,
costume and Branson, when it's freaking 90 degrees out, and you're greeting kids and you're thinking, but I used it as fuel.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's apparent to me, just looking back at your career and kind of researching the different chapters of it, is you talked about opportunities. Every single step of the way, you were being taught to accept opportunities and to accept every opportunity, and then just to make the best out of it. With just you're able to be versatile, and I feel like that is from all of these different residencies that started with the cruise ships and then went to Branson for 22 years, where you're playing 5-6 nights a week, multiple times during the day, and you have to learn how to be different each show, because you're essentially playing in front of the same people day in and day out, so you have to make things new for them. That really helped you later on, didn't it?
Yeah, you have to give them the illusion. You have to give them the illusion that you're doing it for the first time.
Yeah.
And you know, again, I go back to Bill, because he's very wise, and he said to me, he said, the way he put it, and this is so good, he said, an audience is like a first date. He said, you know, you're going on a first date, you put on your best clothes, you fix your hair up, you know, you want to be funny, you want to be charming, and you want to give your best lines, you know, to go out there. And every audience is a first date. Yeah. And so you find ways to connect, just like, you know, like a girl, I might go with a girl this week and I might go out with another girl next week. They're two different entities, but I'm still kind of using my same rap. And every audience is different. You know, you'll get a laugh in one spot, and then you'll find an audience that's not laughing in any of the right places. You know, an audience is an entity in themselves, but you learn to adapt. And within the first 2 or 3 songs, you can kind of draw a beat on what kind of audience you're dealing with, and what relates to them, you know. And if they're clapping and laughing at everything, then you could be a little bigger and bawdier, and you could push the envelope. If they're a little more reserved, you know, you got to come to them on their terms.
Yeah. I love that, man. So, yeah, you're in Branson for all this time, and somehow you meet Bill Medley. You've been talking about Bill quite often, and he's had a huge impact on your life and your career, obviously, not just from a musical standpoint, but from a life standpoint, learning from somebody who's had such an iconic history in the history of music. First of all, tell us how you met Bill Medley.
Well, Bill came in right before Branson really started taking a nosedive. He was probably one of the last big names to come in, but he came in. You know, we had the big economy crash in 2008. Yeah. Which took its toll on Branson and entertainment in general. But Bill came in about 2006, and he was you know, Bobby had passed away in 2003. So he was just Bill Medley of the Righteous Brothers, and he came in with Paul Revere and the Raiders. And they were performing the evening shows. And Dick Clark built a big, huge theater complex, and it's still there, although it's not Dick Clark. It was Dick Clark's American Bandstand Theater, and now it's the Pepsi. Pepsi owns it, so it's Pepsi Theater. And the show I worked at, Legends in Concert, where I did the Blues Brothers, their show is there now. But when Bill was there, he was doing the shows at night, and he gradually started Dick Clark and a guy named Glenn Patch, who helped build the and it's a beautiful facility. They had everything was 1957. They had the 57 car museum downstairs. They had the 57 cafe upstairs. They had a 57 Club 57, which was the nightclub, and they had the big theater, which seats about 2,000. Okay. And Bill started booking acts in there, so he started bringing in Martha and the Vandellas and Mary Wilson from the Supremes and Bobby Rydell and all these. And so Bill was not only performing there, but he was booking there, and he built a house there. He was building his life there. And in 2008, the economy crashed, and Branson took a hit. And then right after that, it seems like people either started leaving Branson or passed away. Andy Williams, when he passed away, that he was Mr. Branson. That was a huge hit. Tony Orlando moved out. Then we lost Mel Tillis, and we lost, we started losing all the greats. And Bill ended up kind of being the last big name standing there. And he was there, and he would come out on Saturday night occasionally to hear my band, the Horn Dogs, because the Saturday night we played in a club called Ain't Misbehaving, then it changed to Shake It Up. But we had four horns, and it was a big band. And like I said, we were doing all the, Sly and the Family Stones, Earth, Wind and Fire, Chicago, and all these great blues, R&B. And Bill and his son Darren would come in, and I've actually got a MP3 that we recorded off the board in 2007 of Bill. I introduced him in the audience, and he hopped up on stage and sang one with us, which is foreshadowing big time.
Yeah, right.
But and Darren, his son, who's a great singer, ended up being the lead singer for Paul Revere and the Raiders. So I got to know Bill because he would come out and hear the band. We'd sit in with us. He would come to my shows. And we just got to be friends, Like, I wouldn't say we were buddies, but, he'd see me. We'd hug each other, And fast forward to about 2013, I decided I'd been at Legends long enough. I was sick of flipping around and doing the Blues Brothers crap. And I've mentioned earlier, my buddy opened up a small little theater called the Tribute Theater. And he was doing the Eagles at the time. And he had been doing the Eagles there for a couple of years. And he had just started doing the Journey Tribute. And the guy that was doing that was leaving. And he approached me and he said, I know you've been talking about leaving Legends. What do you think about coming over to my theater? And my daughter at the time was 8. And because I was doing 12 shows a week at Legends, which you mentioned earlier, she was, and my bands at night. I had two bands, had an 80s band, called Retro, and then the Horn Dogs was my big horn band. I was playing with them 2 or 3 nights a week. So I was just messing my daughter grow up, and so I knew I was wanting out and something with an easier schedule, and God made the way. He sent John, and John we were able to come to a financial agreement, which would be, I would do the Journey show twice a week. One of them was an afternoon show. So I went from being gone 8 nights a week to being gone 3 nights a week. And I would go in and I'd do these. I did Creedence Clearwater Revival and I did Journey. And I ran into Bill at a wedding in 2015. He was really gotten out of Branson at this point. He still had a home there, but he was doing road shows more. And Dean, the Elvis guy I was telling you about earlier, Dean Z, is a good friend of Bill's as well, because he worked for Bill in California. Yeah. Bill had a club called The Hop, and Dean was the Elvis for his show. So he knew Dean from California. So Dean was getting married, and Bill and I both were at the wedding. And again, I saw him. I came up and hugged his neck, and he said, I'm sorry this is taking so long for me to tell. It's kind of an involved story.
No,
so
that's what the show's about, man.
You can edit some of this crap out.
Not happening.
But Bill was at the wedding, and I saw him, and I went over and hugged his neck, and he said, "Wow," he said, "Man, I heard you left Legends. You were there for 12 years. That's a pretty good gig." I said, "Yeah, man. I got sick of singing to Soul Man." But that's really, he had heard me do that.
Yeah.
And then even in the Horn Dogs, I wasn't doing stuff that was, Bobby Hatfield, rangy, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
our drummer in the band, a guy named Dino Phillips, who I'm still dear friends with, Dino would cover a lot of that high stuff. So when we did Earth, Wind, and Fire, you know, do you remember 21st night of and Dino would do all the so Bill didn't know I had any kind of range on me. So I said, yeah, I left Legends, and I'm doing a show called it's a tribute show. I'm doing a show called Don't Start Believing, which is a tribute to Journey.
Yep.
And then I went on to tell him I'm doing Creedence. He goes, hold it. He said it like this. He goes, you're doing Steve Perry. And I said, well, yeah. I said, matter of fact, it was a Saturday when Dean was getting married. I said, as a matter of fact, as luck would have it, I'm doing it. We have an afternoon show at 2:00 tomorrow.
Nice.
For the Journey show. I said, you know, if you want to come, just let me know. And he said, oh, well, maybe I'll take you up on it, blah, 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 blah. And we hugged each other. The wedding happened. And anyway, I came to find out that he went to dinner with a mutual friend of ours that night and was talking about it to him. And he said, man, I just can't imagine Buck singing Journey. I just don't hear it, man. So 5 minutes before showtime the next day, I get a phone call, and he says, hey, Buck, it's Bill Medley. Listen, man, I'm thinking I might come in and catch your act. I said, really? And he said, yeah, I'll probably only stay for a couple songs, but just want to catch you, you know. And I asked him later after the fact, I said, but you thought I couldn't do it. I said, so let me get this straight. You came to the show only because you thought I was going to die.
Yeah, you were going to fail. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The only reason he came. And he didn't even deny it. His comment was, yeah, what a singer's like better than to see other singers die on stage. So he comes to the show. You know, this is 5 minutes before I call up front, put a ticket up for Bill Medley. Everybody's excited because Bill Medley's coming to the show.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's a small theater, 120-seater, very small, intimate, but cool theater, great sound. We had videos behind us. You know, I wasn't dressed up like Steve Perry or John Fogerty. We told stories about why the songs were written. We had video behind us. It was very cool. It's kind of like a rockumentary, you know. Mm-hmm. And so Bill said, I'm probably only going to come for a couple songs. Well, he stayed for the first half of the show. So at intermission, I came out, and we go out and sign and sell merchandise, and Bill's there. And great, man. You killed me. It was great. And so the next day he goes, I think I might want to come back and hear you do, you know, Fogerty tomorrow. Which, in retrospect, if you're a Bobby Hatfield fan, if you listen to Bobby Hatfield sing, mm-hmm. the two elements of his voice are that clean Sam Cooke, Steve Perry, pristine, mm-hmm. top tenor Irish voice. Whoa, that voice. And then in Love and Feeling, you'll hear him, don't bring it on back. You know, you hear him that growl.
Yeah.
I felt like the elements of John Fogerty's voice and the elements of Steve Perry's voice, I could not have picked two better vocalists to perform in front of Bill Medley.
Yeah, Bill's doing his homework on you. He has plans. Yeah.
So he comes to see the next night. He comes back and sees the whole first half of the Creedence Clearwater Revival show. You know, and I'm singing, you know, when I was just a little boy, and I'm doing my Fogerty thing. Yeah. And the night before, he had just heard me doing, you know, so now I come to you. And so he's going. So the next day, he calls me and invites me to go to Fuddruckers to have lunch with him. So I called my wife, and I told Bill this later, and he got a kick out of it. I called my wife, and I said, Bill Medley just called me and asked me to go to Fuddruckers and have lunch with him. Hand to God. I said this. I said, I wonder if he's thinking about getting the Righteous Brothers, reforming the Righteous Brothers. And my wife, who, you know, you got to have a woman that keeps you humble. She said, he probably needs a good yard boy. And so it's Medley loved. And so I went to lunch with him, and he said, listen, man, you know, I've been getting a lot of pressure. I'm 75 years old. You know, he's going to be 85 this year. We're in our 10th year.
Crazy.
He's about to be 85 in September. Just did a new album himself.
I know.
With Michael McDonald singing with him and Vince Gill.
Man, I'm trying to get him on the show, man. I want him on the show so bad.
I'll work on him.
Please,
I'll work on it for you. He was just here, man. I took him to the airport 20 minutes ago, you know, right before you and I got on, because he would have been here.
I'm pretty sure I've emailed his people. It's just, you know, he's very busy, so I get it. But
he just doesn't do as many interviews anymore because he's 85.
Yeah.
Because he's 85. 75 to get him to do anything.
Well, I hope he'll consider it because I think he would enjoy himself, honestly.
Oh, he would, man, and I'll talk to him. Maybe next time he comes, he was just with me here the whole weekend. He stayed with me for the weekend.
Yeah.
We're watching preseason football and having dinner. My wife and daughter are out of town. I said, "Why don't you fly in from?" He lives in Orange County in Newport Beach. I said, "Why don't you fly in and I'll pick you up at the airport and we'll hang this weekend." So he's been staying here with me the whole weekend, man. It's
awesome.
Like I said, he's like a brother to me, man. Like a father, brother, mentor.
Yeah.
But we started talking at lunch, and he's like, "Yeah, I've been getting, I'm 75. I think I'm going to need some help. I'm not interested in finding another. But when I heard you sing, I just really feel like, it's probably not going to happen for a year down the road." He had all these disclaimers. "I just want to know if I can throw your name in the hat." And I said, I just need to double check with my wife because we came to Branson so we would be able to be somewhere where we could be together. And of course I want to do it. But I called and talked to my wife that night, and I said, "If you don't want me to dive into this," and my wife said, she's the best. We've been married 30 years now. She said, "Of course you're going to do it. You've been working your whole life for this. Of course you're going to do it." So I called Bill and I said, "Yeah, if you decide to do it, let me know." So to hear Bill tell the story, he said, I was walking, he takes his walk down by the lake. He said, "I just stopped in my tracks." And he said, "Medley, if you were ever going to do it, that's the guy." Because he had sung with a lot of people. And again, like we talked about earlier, you can sing with somebody, but if they don't have, and my training, I was able to be Bill's wingman. If you see the show, we have dialogue.
Yeah,
it's really
I have.
And so he said, blah, 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 blah. And he said, it might not happen for another year. I don't know when, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, 2 days goes by. And, I told my wife, I said, I don't know what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. So a couple of days goes by. He says, "Why don't you come over to the house?" And I said, "Okay." So I went over to his house, and he's sitting at the piano, his Grammy Awards sitting on the, on the piano, and he's sitting at the piano. He said, "I just want to go through and maybe record a few songs of us doing like the choruses on Love and Feeling." And so we did, and it sounded pretty good. He said, "Well, let's go in the studio. I booked some time in the studio. I'd like to go in the studio and record you and I." So we did the chorus of Love and Feeling. I sang Unchained Melody. We did Soul and Inspiration. We did Rock and Roll Heaven. All the Righteous Brothers hits, and we recorded just the choruses. And he sent them to our manager, which has been his manager since '65, David Cohen. He just passed away a couple years ago. Great guy. And so I figured I'd hear something down the line. Well, less than a week later, he calls me again, and he says, "Listen, why don't we meet over at Level 2 Steakhouse? I'll take you to dinner." And I'm like, I told my wife, I said, "Wow, I've graduated from
Fuddruckers to Level 2. Yeah,
the best steakhouse in town."
Yeah.
And I just thought he wanted to get to know me a little better, because we knew each other, but I figured he wanted to just get to know me. So we're sitting at dinner, and he said, I sent that demo to my manager, and he said, and our voices, you can have two great voices, it doesn't, but that Righteous Brothers blend. You got to have the blend. And our voices just locked. He said, David started crying on the phone. He said, "Sounds like the Righteous Brothers to me, brother." So Bill told me that, and I was like, wow, that's great, And we're eating dinner, and in the middle of dinner, he holds up his wine glass, and he says, "So are we doing this?" And I went, I was trying to process it. I'm like, "So you mean like now?" And he's like, "Yeah, you finish your contract out. I've got some opportunities maybe in Vegas for us to go in." And I said, I picked my wine glass up and I chink. And he said, "Well," he goes, "You're a righteous brother. I guess now we got to get a gig."
Yeah, that's awesome.
So about a month later, I called my buddy Paul, had just lost his father. And when I lost my mom, I just wanted something to look forward to. So I told my buddy Paul, I said, "Leave your wallet at home. I'm going to take you to Van Halen." David Lee Roth was singing with him. Kenny Wayne Shepherd was opening in Kansas City. So we're sitting in the hotel having drinks, getting ready to go to the concert. And Bill calls me. He said, "I've got good news. I hope you think it's good news." He goes, "We've been offered 3 months at Harrah's in Las Vegas on the Strip beginning in March of next year." And this is about, this is towards the end of the year. Anyway, he said, but, you're going to have to leave Branson. And I can only guarantee you 3 months. I don't know what's going to happen after that. He goes, it may continue, it may not. And so I said, I'm in. So we went to Laughlin in February. So I get off the phone and my buddy Paul's going, what happened? And I said, well, I guess I'm a righteous brother. We're going to Vegas. And he's jumping up and down on the bed, freaking out. And he says to me, why aren't you freaking out? I said, I am freaking out, but in a completely different way than you are.
Internally.
Because the gravity of what I'm about to step into, I'm going to be compared to Bobby. I'm going to be judged against him.
Yep.
It was for the first 2 years I was doing it, dude. It was almost overwhelming.
I can imagine the pressure. Yeah.
I was getting hammered on Facebook.
Yep.
And on social media, even though people hadn't even heard me sing. Who does this guy think he is? Nobody can replace Bobby Hatfield. There's only one Righteous Brothers, and all that. And Bill said, you just can't look at that. So we were given the 3 months. We went into Laughlin to put the show up, and we're sitting at breakfast. This was February 26th. We had 5 shows in Laughlin at Don Laughlin's Riverside Casino, 700-seater. And we're at breakfast, and we rehearsed with the band one time. We ran the show one time. Bill is still writing some dialogue for me on a napkin at breakfast the morning of the first show. And the reason we decided to do it, I don't want to put Laughlin down because we're going to play a gig there in December. But Bill decided to put the show up in Laughlin before we went to Vegas. So we did the 5 shows in Laughlin and went right into Vegas. He said, because you can go to Laughlin and die and nobody will know.
Yep.
So he calls our music director from the table and just says, I want to see how we're doing tonight. This is 700-seater. So he calls Tim. He's, yeah, go, great, cool. Hangs up the phone. And he said, well, we're sold out. And I said, oh, wow. My heart's going. He goes, we're sold out. He goes, no. We're sold out all 5 nights.
Wow.
And he said, I needed 2 questions answered about you. Well, first of all, I need to know if people are going to care that the Righteous Brothers are back together. And that answered that. And he said, I need to know if they're going to accept anybody in Bobby Hatfield's role. So about 5 songs into the show, he picked a song for me. He said, I want you to do a song that's not a Hatfield song, that's not a Righteous Brothers song, a great song from this era that you can go out and sing, and the audience won't be comparing you to Bobby. And he picked Crying by Roy Orbison.
Damn.
Which I stayed away from Orbison my whole career. I don't do Orbison.
I don't blame you.
Because Orbison is, Elvis called him the voice for a reason.
He's a different level, yeah.
So when he said, I want you to do Crying, I was like, and he saw the panic.
Yeah, it's not just Orbison, but it's the quintessential Orbison song. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he did this great arrangement. It's almost like he and it builds at the end so I can go into my power voice. I don't sing it in falsetto like Roy does, except at the beginning. And there's clips of me doing it from the show, but I've been doing that song for 10 years. It's become a signature song for me. And so the very first time I did it, Bill walks off stage and here's Bucky singing Crying for Roy Orbison. And I closed my eyes the whole time, Chris. I don't think I opened my eyes. And I finished the song and I opened my eyes and all 700 people were standing. And Bill walked out and he said, well, that answers that.
Yep.
And so it started slow, but we started booking road shows. And last year we did 30 shows in Vegas and 60 shows on the road all over the country. We've been over to Italy. We've been to Greece. It's turned into something truly amazing. And so now Bill's kind of approaching pre-retirement, and I worked on solo album, which you know about, which I just finished. So
yeah, which we're definitely gonna chat about. Again,
I'm sorry for the long.
No, you're good. I just have one question though. Looking back, right? So you talked about all this pressure of being compared to Bobby Hatfield. So the question is, do you think it was easier to be a Righteous Brother or a lawn boy in Vegas?
I don't know. That's a toughie, dude. That's kind of a toss-up. Yeah. Dude, that's a great question. But yeah, it was just insane. You could not. That's why the people that don't say they don't believe in God, I'm like, there's no way that's orchestrated by chance.
Well, man, I feel like our lives are always preparing us for what's next, right? Like
Absolutely.
you know, like I have such a hodgepodge of things in my life that you wouldn't think would make sense. I've been a karaoke host. I've been a professional wrestler. I've been a cab driver,
Wow.
right? I've done all of these different things that if you add them all together makes for the perfect podcast host, right? Like just.
It's a combination of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Make you who you are. You know, I actually wrote a song called Soul Casserole, which is on my last album that Bill produced. It's mainly cover songs for the Righteous. It was geared toward the Righteous Brothers audience, so I'm doing a lot of ballads. But I did one of my originals on there. It's called Soul Casserole. It's kind of I don't know if you're familiar with the band Tower of Power, but Tower of Power,
yeah.
They're kind of a funky R&B. Yep. But it's about how the music, like there's really no original music. We're just a hodgepodge of the artists that influenced us. So the song goes, so I am a tablespoon of Marvin Gaye, a dash of Otis on the dock of the bay, simmer till it's James Brown, sprinkle it down with the tears of a clown, Tina Turner set the burner on high, Sam cook it till it's caramelized. You know, all these. So my Soul Casserole are artists that made me who I am as a vocalist, my influences.
Yeah.
And Bill's Soul Casserole is Ray Charles and Little Richard and those guys, you know, and that also applies to your career, you know, the things in your life that happen, like
Very
you
true.
said,
Yep.
all the things that you've done in your life is what's making you great at what you're doing now.
Yep. Yeah, it's so true. Man, let's talk about what you are doing now. That's called a perfect segue, ladies and gentlemen. So you're pretty much becoming a solo artist now, and so you're going to be living under your own name now, which is a whole new pressure. Let's be honest, right? But also, I mean, you got this new record that's coming out with a couple of singles that are already out from it that people can go and listen to. One is called My Best Days. Another is called It Is What It Is Till It Ain't, which I love the title, the alliterativeness of that, and I love both of those songs. Talk a little bit about the record, because I haven't heard it yet, but I have heard and seen some words and stuff on it, that it's going to be a huge variety between up-tempo and ballads. And you did mention that you are more well known for the ballad and stuff like that, but there's going to be a lot of up-tempo songs on this record too, and that is important, that diversity in a record, right? So tell us about the record. It was done by Nashville producer Bob Bullock, who everybody knows who Bob Bullock is, so that's a huge thing as well. Really excited about this. When's it coming out, and tell us more about it?
We're shooting for a release date. It's funny because back when I was first starting, you know, you'd release the whole album, but nowadays you release one single and
Waterfall. Yep.
Yeah, and we're producing music videos, which you've seen. Mm-hmm. So we released the first single June 27th, which was My Best Days, and then about 8 days later we released the video to My Best Days, which is a great video. It's Bill basically starts out at my 9th birthday, and I blow out the candles on different eras of my life, and Bill Medley is kind of in the background, and only I can see him. And it's based on a true story. My mom, Cliff tells me not to give the date because I'm going to age myself. And we'll just say my 9th birthday. Rock and Roll Heaven was my favorite Righteous Brothers song, and my mom bought me the 45.
Wow.
And it reenacts that. We hired all these little actors to play me in 1970, whatever, 4 or 5. And that's a long time ago. But she, you know, and it starts there, and then I blow the count, and Bill's in the background, and I look around and see him, and he does this, and then the mom turns around and he's gone, and then it goes to the 80s, and he's sitting at the bar stool behind me, and I slam a beer in 1987, which I did a lot of, and I turn around to order another beer, and Bill's sitting at the bar, and he points at me, and it's like I almost recognize him. Thank you. Yeah, happy birthday. Thank you. And then it cuts back to the wide shot, and he's gone. Then it goes to me in the studio in 2007, and Bill's there, and again he's gone. And then it shows he and I on the Righteous Brothers stage, and he walks off the stage and leaves me by myself. And then I bow to him, and I raise my head up, and it's the Bucky Heard show.
Such a biographical video, right?
Oh, 100%. My brother plays me in 2000s. He's only 4 years younger than me, but he doesn't have the beard, and he doesn't have as much gray as me right now. But that started. That was the first song we released off the album, and Ken Blasey wrote that song. And it was actually cut. He wrote Garth Brooks' first number one hit, Tomorrow Never Comes. He wrote Ain't Going Down Till the Sun Comes Up. And he actually ended up writing 3 songs that are on my album because they're just good. Yeah. So 3 of 8 songs on the album Ken Blasey wrote with another couple of writers. One of the writers is Marv. I'm blank right now, but he wrote. He also wrote. I think he wrote "Amazed" by Lone Star. Maybe I'm amazed.
Oh, Marv Green. Marv Green.
Marv Green. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, what a song.
Great writer.
So anyway, so then we released the video. So then we just released "It Is What It Is Till It Ain't," which is Bill says that all the time. You hear "It Is What It Is." Yeah, it is what it is. But it is what it is till it ain't. And I took that turn and I went in and I wrote at the Jonas Brothers have a publishing company, Jonas Entertainment on Music Row, and I went down and wrote with a girl named Terry Jo Box and a guy named Pat Trick, he goes by Trick Savage, and I said I want to take this concept of it is what it is and I want to turn it into a positive. So whereas initially we were thinking, it is what it is till it ain't. You date this girl, you think she's the one, and then she starts showing up your door at 3 a.m. going, why didn't you call me? So it is what it is till it ain't. And Terry said, well, let's take this song and let's try to make it something positive. So, it is what it is till it ain't. The opening line is grab that bull by the horns and hang on. Take the chance when the chance comes along, because clocks don't run backwards and you can't go skipping chapters. Life comes at you fast and it's gone.
Yep. Wow.
It is what it is till it ain't. A wave is a wave till it breaks. An open door is open until it starts closing. So, and I said, I want to go for this really Bob Seger, John Fogerty. I want to bring back that Southern fried rock, that gritty. Mm-hmm. And so we went from My Best Days, which is a really pretty, beautiful song. So It Is What It Is Till It Ain't dropped on the 1st. And then we released the song, I think the video was released on like the 7th.
It was like 6 days later. Yeah.
And we did the video down in Branson. My buddy Craig, there's a cool bar there called Crazy Craig's Cheeky Monkey. And we recorded it there. And I called in all my friends that are actors and dancers. And my buddy Ponch had a great Mexican feast spread for us. I catered it. And we shot it there at Crazy Craig's. And it turned out really amazing. And actually, right now we're being featured in Taste of Country in Nashville. They're voting right now for the top 10 videos, and I'm number 2 right now. So,
nice. Very
you go
good
to Taste of Country, Bucky Heard, but that video turned out real good. The next one we're doing next month, I'm flying into Branson to the video. We're going to release Crying next month. The single drops right around the 7th or 8th, I think, of October, and then the video will drop right after that. But it's going to be a shot black and white. It's a different version of Crying. The music director for my project, for my album, is none other than the amazing Chris Lusinger, who has been with Garth Brooks since 1980. Every solo on every Garth Brooks hit, that's Chris.
Yep.
And we're driving Bob Bullock and I are driving to the studio. We recorded my album at Curb Studios in Nashville. And we're on our way to the studio to work with the rhythm section, which is Eddie Bayer, who's house drummer for the Grand Ole Opry, and Mike Brignordello and Michael, all these great top of the line Nashville. Bob Bullock brought in the A-team.
Yeah.
And Chris calls us on the phone, and Bob puts him on the phone speaker, and he goes, "Oh, listen, I've got an idea for Crying of how to the intro. I'd like to do an intro where the audience doesn't recognize it's Crying until you actually say, I was all right. Kind of like what Katie Lang did.
Yeah.
When she did the live version, you don't know it's Crying until she starts singing.
Right.
At the listening party, we had all the people that were part of and they were listening. And as soon as I go, I was all right. Whoa. So it's almost like if Chris Isaacs wrote the beginning of it. It's a great arrangement. So that'll drop next, and then the video will drop. And then there's a song called Ride the Lightning, which we're really gearing toward the rodeo NFR. It sounds like a bull riding freaking song.
Nice. And
that'll be the next one, and then the whole album will drop sometime mid-November.
Nice.
Around that. The album's called Breathless.
Okay.
And there are 8 songs on it, and Crying is the only cover that I'm doing. The rest of them are originals, and they're beautiful, like you said, lots of beautiful ballads, but all the songs are meaningful in that I told my team, I said, I don't want to, when they were reaching out to these song pluggers, I don't want to sing about getting drunk. I don't want to sing about partying and trucks and trains and dirt roads and all that. I want to sing about meaningful things.
Yep.
So even the rock songs, like It Is What It Is, has a positive message.
They have to be relevant, right? Like, you have to stand out nowadays. There's so much oversaturation in the music business.
Oh, big time, man. And everything sounds, I'm not putting down, but I wanted something that sounds different.
You're not wrong. Everything does sound the same. I know that's what you were going to say, but yeah, it's true.
Everybody is scared to, we can't do. I mean, I faced that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob and I are of the same mindset to where we want to step outside the box.
You have to. You look at the people who are standing outside the box, and they're the ones that people are listening to. I mean,
Garth Brooks. Yeah. Garth Brooks changed country music.
Well, look at nowadays, Sierra Farrell. She is clearly outside of every box, and she is just getting so much notice.
Because you got to do that.
Yeah.
But people are scared to do that.
Yeah.
They're scared to do that because Nashville, it's very particular about what they will accept. And a lot of these, I'm eventually going to approach. I'm doing everything independently right now.
Yeah.
To get everything off the ground. The album's done, the videos are done. Then I'm going to go to a couple of labels and say, we've done all the work. I just need you to push it,
Yeah.
And so that's kind of clipping the plan. But I could have, and let's be honest, I'm not stupid. I know I'm an older artist, but I have the Righteous Brothers name behind me all these years, even though that's not country. I've been performing for thousands of people across the country.
Your voice is ageless, man. That's all that matters. Like,
yeah. And I keep myself in good shape. Yep. I'm trying to go for the young Chris Christopherson look, but I'm an encourager of people. Like, my big message in my live shows and on this album is dreams do not have a shelf life. I am living proof, and I want to encourage you through my songs. And I'm not going to preach to these people, and I don't preach to them, but I encourage them that if you've got a dream, like I close my show with a really cool version of Don't Stop Believing by Journey, because I do Creedence Clearwater in my show.
Yeah.
Because that's part of my journey.
I mean, that is part of that's part of your path, man. That should be part of your
the
show.
Eagles, we do Heartache Tonight by the Eagles, a real cool version of that. And then I sprinkle these originals in between those. And my show, Bill went to both. I've done 2 shows in Vegas, my shows, and Bill was at both of them. I do Unchained Melody in the show, and crying. And Bill's like, you know what, man? He goes, the show's great. He said, you have touched onto something. You found your brand. You're this rugged rock and roll singer with a message of love and kindness and hope. And that's what I want to bring.
Love it.
That's what I can bring. I've lived a lifetime of memories, and I can encourage these guys. I don't care if you're 8, I don't care if you're 80. Take that dream off the shelf, dust it off, and take steps and work towards it, because it can happen. I became a Righteous Brother right around 50 years old.
Yeah.
What if I'd given up?
I mean, not a lot. Yeah, it's badass. It's badass. Guys, we got Bucky Heard. Bucky Heard is on the show for the first time. We're going to get into our having fun segments, which, Bucky, what we do with these is we use them for like little TikToks and reels and things to kind of get people buzzed about the full episode. I think you'll really enjoy these segments. But the first one is called Did You Know? Can you tell us something that your fans may not know about you?
Ooh, gosh, something that my fans may not know about me. Boy, can we come back to that
one? No, we cannot.
No, let me think about it. Well, there's a couple of things. Well, they might not have known that I like to go caving. I'm a geology guy, so that's one of the things we talked about earlier. I'm also, if something ever bad happened in my life and the police had to come and look at what I record, they would think I'm a serial killer, because I am addicted to ID Network, Wives with Knives.
Oh my God, I love that stuff, bro.
The Last 48.
Hell yeah.
I watched every movie on the Jeffrey Dahmer series that just came out. I know everything, like Zach Baggins. You know who Zach Baggins is?
Of course. Yeah.
He's got a museum here.
Yeah.
And they actually have Charles Manson's false teeth, and they have the gloves that Bundy wore and all.
Okay, so you need to watch the new version of Dexter that just came out.
I did.
Yeah, it's badass.
I watched they got a brand new one coming out. Is it out already?
It's out. Yeah, the first 6 episodes are out.
I watched the last 2. You know, I did.
It's called Dexter Resurrection. It's awesome.
I knew it was coming. Oh, great!
Yeah, it's really good. If you're a Dexter fan, you will love it.
Big time. Well, as soon as we hook it up, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And actually, and I'm a big horror movie buff too.
Yeah,
which
nice.
kind of goes hand in hand. I did a movie back in 2007. And I'm actually reworking on the script, but it's an independent film. I wrote it, directed it. I played the killer in it, and I'm actually. My daughter thinks it's from. We did it around 2006, so it's a little dated, but it kind of makes it like Blair Witchy kind of cool.
Yeah.
And my daughter goes, Dad, I think Netflix would love it. I don't think you need to change it. I think it's because it's older.
Yeah.
But we made the film, and the guy that I did the Blues Brothers with is an editor. It's called The Forecast, and it's about this weatherman, Mort Orthman, who basically goes off the deep end. A bunch of bad things happen to him, and he's kind of a goofy, he's kind of a Matt Foley, Chris Farley kind of, he's a goofy kind of character.
Yeah.
And he ends up going off the deep end, and he kills weathermen when they miss the forecast.
That's awesome.
So it's a dark comedy.
Yeah.
But the serial killer thing.
Yeah,
my wife, she's like, I'm getting a little creeped out by you right now.
You'll like the new one. Not to give anything away, and no spoilers here, but the new version of Dexter ends up with him as part of like a group of serial killers that this real rich guy has like dinner parties for all of these serial killers.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Well, the last one I really didn't love.
Yeah. The one where he was younger.
The very first series, but then they came out with the second version of Dexter. I can't remember what it was called.
Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Where they had to fix the ending because the ending was so bad.
He comes out of hiding and moves into that little northern town.
Yep. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was okay.
All right, let's move on to Mount Rushmore. Who is on Bucky Heard's Mount Rushmore of favorite all-time artists?
Paul Stanley, Steve Perry, probably Bob Seger, and the last one's always the toughie. I'm just going to throw one that could be. There's probably 4 or 5 of them that could be.
Yeah.
But Michael McDonald.
Okay, very nice. Okay. All right, next segment is called What the Heck. What the Heck is a rapid-fire game where I'm going to ask you 5 rapid-fire questions, and you have to tell me the first thing that hits your brain. Don't change your answer.
Woo!
Before
okay.
Whatever comes to your thoughts comes.
Brother, you're asking for it now.
That's why we call it What the Heck. All right, so here's What the Heck with Bucky Heard. Which superpower do you wish you had?
Flight.
All right, if your pet could say something about you, what would he say?
You rock, Dad.
All right, number 3. What do you think is your weirdest talent?
Russian dancing.
All right, number 4. Are you more of a hunter or a gatherer?
More of a what?
Hunter or a gatherer?
Hunter.
Okay, and last one. Let's see here. What are you most afraid of?
2 things. Can I give 2?
Yeah.
Well, spiders came to mind first. Spiders and sharks.
Spiders and sharks. Okay.
I have this nightmare. Well, I have some things that I really don't like, and this is kind of funny. I was afraid of flying too, like deathly afraid of flying until I've done a lot more of it. So it's I don't like spiders. I don't like sharks, flying, and my nipples are very sensitive. Like I don't even bathe them, Like that'd be my handle if the CB radio was still. I'd be old dirty nipples.
Old dirty nipples.
I told Bill, I said my ultimate nightmare would be for spiders to be biting my nipples as I go down in a plane crash in shark-infested waters.
No, there we go. All right, so that's
there
is your biggest fear right there. Okay, next segment is called One Artist. Who is one artist you wish the whole world knew about?
I'm sorry, you went out on me for a second.
Who is one artist you wish the whole world knew about?
One artist the whole world knew about. So it wouldn't be a guy. Michael Grimm.
Okay, very cool. All right, next one's called Wishlist. What's still on your wish list of things you haven't done yet?
This is going to sound weird, me telling you I'm scared of sharks, but my bucket list thing is to go to Australia and get in a cage with a great white shark.
Yeah, sounds yeah, okay. Common sense, sure.
It's a weird thing, man.
Terrified of sharks. Put me in the water with one.
Well, I want to be in a cage, though.
Yeah. All right, next one's called Biggest Lesson. What is the biggest lesson you've learned directly from music?
The biggest lesson?
Yeah.
That I've learned from music? Perseverance.
Never give up.
Yep.
I love it. All right, Moment of Gravity is the next segment. I feel like everybody, when you look back at your life, you can kind of pinpoint where your path started to lead you where you are now. Do you know what that moment was for you?
That got me on the path?
Yeah.
Probably when I made the decision to drop out of college and go on the road with that rock band. That was a pretty scary, and at that moment I was in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the all in, and I think you've learned risk from that, right? You've always taken risks because of that moment.
Well, when that worked out, I was like, well, that really put things in perspective for me. That, high risk, high reward.
Sure. All right, next one's called Grateful. What are the 3 things you're most grateful for?
God, my family, and my friends.
Very good. All right, last one is called Who Do You Think You Are? Who is Bucky Heard?
I'm a freaking righteous brother. No.
Let's go.
I'm righteous, dude. I'm righteous. No, who do I think I am? I think I'm an entertainer with a positive message that wants to uplift and make this world a better place.
Can't ask for better than that, right? Man,
sure. I hope everybody else feels that way when they hear my music.
I think your music is fantastic, man, and I want everybody to know this is Bucky Heard. I love how you said righteous brother first, but you're so much more than that, man. And your story tells on you, right? Like it truly does.
Hey, listen, man. Thanks for this great interview, dude. I appreciate the fact that you looked in and did your, the questions were fantastic, very insightful, and it's one of the best interviews I've done. I really, this is the only interview I've done, but no, I'm kidding. But no, dude, I've enjoyed this so much, and it just flew by. I'm sorry that I'm long-winded.
No, Bill, man, that's why we do this, man. The stories go where they go.
I go on too long. Medley told me one time, and I keep going back to Bill because we're pretty much joined at the hip. And he said, Bucky, listen, man. He said, when I ask you what time it is, you don't have to tell me how to build a clock.
That's right. Just tell me what time it is, man. I'm going to get in so much trouble for this, man. I'll ask my wife a question, and she'll give me the answers to 4 other questions, man. It drives me nuts, bro. Like, just tell me the answer out to the question I'm asking.
One of my theater teachers, that Dr. Harrison, you had to get past his play analysis class to get your BFA. He was like the last door to get through to get your degree. And I was going to impress him. We were analyzing Macbeth, and I wrote this 6-page, it kind of reminds me of Ralphie in the Christmas Story, when he writes the essay,
yeah.
And it comes back with a C+, well, mine came back with a C+, the same thing, red ink at the top, and it said, too much wind up, not enough pitch.
I love it. Man, it's Bucky Heard here on the Boston Chris podcast. I want to show and let everybody know where you can follow along with this awesome guy. It's BuckyHeard.com. We're going to put a link in the description down below for that. Again, the new singles are dropping just about every month or every other month. You can already listen to My Best Days and It Is What It Is Till It Ain't. Both of those have official videos out on YouTube as well that you can check out. The social medias are very simple. It's at Bucky Heard, all one word. He's on Facebook. He's on Instagram. If you're wondering if he's on anything else, I think he's on TikTok as well with that moniker. And if you're wondering about other social medias, just go to Google and type in Bucky Heard, and you're going to find everywhere this man is. How would you say is the best way for folks to support you as an artist?
One thing I'm really needing right now, so I just started this new, and Cliff helped me get this new YouTube page going. I had 2 or 3 YouTube pages over the years, and I got rid of pretty much everything except one. And we're going to be posting the videos there. So all the videos are going to premiere there. And like I said, I'm releasing Crying next, and then a big rodeo NFR called Ride the Lightning. So they can go, if they would go to my YouTube page, and subscribe, that would be great.
Perfect.
They can follow me there, but also, like you said, all social media, but mainly if they go to YouTube and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. And if anybody's got the time to run over to Taste of Country and give me a vote for, hopefully, I think I've been battling with this one girl. We've been jumping back and forth between first and second, but Taste of Country is a pretty big deal, and they're really pushing my Is What It Is video. But
very cool.
But yeah,
so we'll put a link in the description for your YouTube page as well to make it easier for folks to subscribe.
I appreciate
and the way I'll set it up is just that they click on it, and then the subscribe button will just be right there on the screen for them. That way they don't have to search for all that junk either. Again, Bucky, thank you so much for your time today, man. I hope you had fun.
You're the best, man, Chris. I hope our paths cross. We get up in your area occasionally, and I'll try to keep an eye on if we're coming where you are, and if we are, please reach out to me.
Sure.
You can reach Cliff. You can find me. I'll be glad to give you my number anytime.
Okay.
And I would love for you to be our guest. We're going to do some more shows next year. Bill said he's feeling good, so I'll be doing Righteous Brothers shows and Bucky Heard shows.
Good stuff.
Everybody come out and see us. And if you ever want to come see us, and we're coming close, I'd love for you to be our guest.
Perfect, man.
Hey,
would you
folks,
mind doing?
I'm Ray Weaver, and thanks for tuning in to the Boston Chris Show.